Elias Wright sat in the captain's chair on the bridge of the Orion's Edge. His eyes moved across the large window that showed the endless darkness of space. Small dots of light from distant stars were the only break in the black void. At 55 years old, Elias had spent 30 years in the United Earth Fleet. His hair was gray at the temples, and lines marked his face from years of making tough choices. "Captain, we're approaching the border of mapped space," said Lisa Morgan. She stood at the navigation console, her fingers moving quickly over the control panel. As first officer, Lisa had served with Elias for 7 years. She was smart, capable, and Elias trusted her judgment completely. "Standard patrol pattern, Lisa. Let's keep our sensors at maximum range," Elias replied. His voice was calm and steady. After 3 decades of service, border patrols were routine. He expected nothing unusual today. Chief Engineer Frank Ramirez entered the bridge holding a tablet with engine reports. "Captain, engines are running at peak efficiency. I've boosted our sensor range by another 2%. "Good work, Frank." Elias nodded. Frank was a genius with machines. He could fix anything and always found ways to improve their systems. The Orion's Edge was not the newest or most impressive ship in the fleet. It was a mid-sized exploration vessel with a crew of 63. The ship had seen better days, but Elias loved it like a home. He knew every creak and hum of its engines. 3 more months and then retirement, Elias thought to himself. He had plans to buy a small house by a lake on Earth, a place where he could fish and watch the sunset without worrying about alien encounters or ship malfunctions. After 30 years of service, he felt ready for a quieter life. "Captain," Olivia Green's voice cut through his thoughts. The young communications specialist's eyes were wide with surprise. "I'm picking up a signal. It's not one of ours." Elias sat up straighter. "From where?" "That's the strange part, sir. It's coming from the uncharted region, Sector 7 Alpha," Olivia replied. Her fingers danced across her console as she tried to clean up the signal. "It's not like anything in our database." "Put it on speaker," Elias ordered. A strange sound filled the bridge. It wasn't like normal communication signals. It had a pattern that rose and fell in a way that seemed almost musical, but with an underlying urgency. "Is it a distress call?" Lisa asked, moving closer to Olivia's station. "I can't tell for certain," Olivia answered. "But the pattern suggests some kind of emergency transmission." Elias stroked his chin, considering their options. Protocol was clear. Unidentified signals from uncharted space should be reported to Fleet Command for analysis. Direct investigation was discouraged without backup. "Sir, Fleet Command will want us to log this and continue our patrol," Lisa reminded him, voicing what everyone was thinking. Elias stared at the star map showing the source of the mysterious signal. Something about it tugged at his instincts. In 30 years of space travel, he had learned to trust those instincts. "How far to the signal source?" he asked. "About 6 hours at maximum speed," Frank answered. Elias made his decision. "Set a course for the signal. Yellow alert status." "Captain," Lisa lowered her voice. "Protocol says—" "I know what protocol says, Lisa." Elias cut her off gently. "But something about this doesn't feel right. If someone's in trouble out there, we can't just ignore it. We'll approach cautiously, and if there's any sign of threat, we'll withdraw immediately." The crew exchanged glances but moved to follow his orders. In all their years with Captain Wright, he had never steered them wrong. As the Orion's Edge changed course and accelerated toward the unknown signal, Elias felt a strange mix of emotions. Concern about breaking protocol, certainly, but also a spark of excitement he hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't just going through the motions. He had no way of knowing that this decision would change not only his life, but the future of humanity and the entire galaxy. The Orion's Edge dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a slight shudder. The view on the main screen changed from streaking stars to a scene that made everyone on the bridge gasp. "My God," whispered Lisa. "What are we looking at?" Before them floated the wreckage of what must have been dozens of ships. Some were still burning, casting an eerie glow against the blackness of space. And in the middle of this destruction, a battle was still taking place. Elias leaned forward in his chair, eyes fixed on the screen. "Magnify that section," he ordered, pointing to where smaller silver ships were being pursued by larger dark vessels with red glowing weapons. "Those smaller ships are trying to escape," Frank said, stating what everyone could see. "The big ones are picking them off one by one. Scan both ship types." "I want to know what we're dealing with," Elias commanded. Olivia worked at her console. "Captain, I'm detecting life forms on the silver ships that don't match any known species in our database. Same for the attacking vessels. Both are completely alien to us." "The silver ships are badly damaged," Lisa reported. "They're running on minimal power. One of them appears to be a different design from the others, possibly a command or diplomatic vessel." Elias stood up and walked closer to the view screen. This was far beyond a simple distress call. They had stumbled upon what looked like the end of a massacre. Protocol dictated they should retreat and report this to Fleet Command immediately. Interfering in an alien conflict was strictly forbidden, but as they watched, the ship Lisa had identified as different from the others took a direct hit. Its engines flared and then dimmed dangerously. "That ship is about to lose life support," Frank said urgently. 5 minutes, maybe less." Elias made his decision in an instant. Battle stations, shields up, arm weapons. The bridge crew stared at him in shock. "Sir?" Lisa questioned. "Fleet regulations clearly state—" "I know what they state." Elias cut her off. "But I didn't sign up to watch innocent beings die when we could help. We're going in." His voice softened slightly. "Anyone who objects can note their disagreement in the log." No one spoke up. "Frank, I need maximum power to shields and weapons. Olivia, try to establish communication with the damaged diplomatic vessel. Lisa, plot an intercept course that keeps us between that ship and the attackers." The crew jumped into action. The Orion's Edge surged forward, its outdated but well-maintained engines pushing to full power. "The attacking ships have noticed us," Lisa warned. 3 of them are breaking off to intercept." "Let them come," Elias said grimly. "Fire warning shots across their path. Let's see if they can be reasoned with." The Orion's Edge fired its forward lasers, the energy beams slicing through space just ahead of the approaching ships. The response was immediate. All 3 ships opened fire. "Evasive maneuvers," Elias ordered as the ship rocked from near misses. "Return fire. Target their weapon systems only." The human ship danced through space, its movements unpredictable and fluid, compared to the rigid patterns of the alien attackers. The Orion's weapons struck true, disabling one attacker's main guns. "I've established a tractor beam with the diplomatic vessel," Frank reported. "We can tow them if we get close enough." "The attacking ships are sending us some kind of transmission," Olivia said. It seems threatening, but I can't translate it yet." "We'll worry about introductions later," Elias said. "Right now, let's focus on saving that ship." The Orion's Edge pushed forward, taking hits but giving as good as it got. Alarms blared as systems took damage, but the human ship refused to back down. As they closed in on the damaged alien vessel, Elias felt the weight of his decision. He had just involved humanity in an interstellar conflict with unknown species. His career was certainly over. But as the tractor beam locked onto the silver diplomatic ship and began to pull it to safety, he couldn't bring himself to regret his choice. Elias stood in a room unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls seemed to shift colors slowly from deep blue to purple. The air felt different, richer somehow, with a hint of sweetness. He and his chosen crew members, Lisa, Frank, and Olivia, had been brought to this place after saving the Valerian diplomatic vessel. "This is the council chamber," said their guide, who had introduced himself as Kale. He looked almost human, except for his silver-tinted skin and large eyes that were completely black. Few humans have ever seen this. "Few?" Elias asked, surprised. "You mean we're not the first humans you've encountered?" Kale gave what seemed like a sad smile. "We have observed your species for centuries, but official contact? No, that was not planned for at least another 50 years. Before Elias could ask more questions, A door opened on the far side of the chamber. A group of beings entered, each looking more alien than the last. Some floated, rather than walked. Others moved on multiple legs. One appeared to be made of shifting crystal. The being in the center, taller than the rest with 4 arms and skin that resembled bark, approached them. "I am Zixtor, chairman of the Galactic Council. You are Captain Elias Wright of Earth." Elias straightened his back. "I am. These are my officers." Zixtor's face didn't show emotion in a way Elias could read, but his voice carried a weight of sadness. "Your intervention was unexpected, brave, but it changes many things." "Those ships were being attacked," Elias said firmly. "We couldn't stand by and watch." "The attackers are called the Draxians," Zixtor explained. "They have been at war with the Council for nearly 20 years, and they are winning." The chairman gestured, and a 3-dimensional map appeared in the center of the room, showing hundreds of star systems. Many were colored red. Each red system has fallen to the Draxians. They now control nearly 40% of what was once Council space. Lisa stepped forward. "With respect, sir, how is that possible? The Council seems to have many species, many worlds. How can one species conquer so many?" A smaller alien with features that reminded Elias of an octopus moved forward. "They have developed a weapon that neutralizes all Council defense systems. Our ships become helpless before them. We have tried everything," Zixtor continued. "Different tactics, new weapons, even attempts at peace negotiations. Nothing has worked. The Council is preparing to surrender." Elias couldn't hide his shock. "Surrender? To give up all those worlds, all those people?" "To save what remains," Zixtor corrected. "The terms are harsh but will spare billions of lives." Suddenly, an alarm sounded. The map in the center of the room zoomed in on a nearby star system, showing several red dots approaching. "Draxian scout ships," someone called out. "They must have followed the human vessel." Panic rippled through the Council members. Elias watched as these powerful beings, representatives of hundreds of advanced worlds, showed fear. "We have defenses here," Zixtor assured everyone, though his voice lacked conviction. Olivia, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward and studied the movement patterns of the approaching ships on the map. "These communication signals, they have a flaw. They're repeating in predictable patterns." The Council members looked at her in confusion. "What do you mean, human?" asked the octopus-like being. "Their ships send signals to each other in a fixed pattern. If we broadcast a similar signal with a slight delay, we could confuse their navigation systems," Olivia explained. Frank nodded excitedly. "She's right. And if we combine that with a focused electromagnetic pulse, you would need to get very close to their ships," one Council member objected. "It would be suicide." "Not if we use your Council ship's cloaking technology that I noticed during our approach," Elias suggested. "Combined with our human tactics, it might work." The Council members looked at each other, uncertainty clear in their expressions. "You would risk yourselves? For us?" Zixtor asked. "When you only just learned of our existence?" Elias looked at his crew, who nodded their agreement. "That's what humans do," he said simply. "We help when we can. Now let's move quickly before those scouts report back." Something changed in Zixtor's stance. A straightening, a new energy. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "we have underestimated humanity." Elias stood straight in the meeting room at Earth Fleet headquarters. The wall-sized windows showed the gleaming towers of New Washington outside. It had been 3 days since the Orion's Edge returned to Earth, bringing with them representatives from the Valyrian species. "Let me get this straight, Captain Wright," Fleet Admiral Laura Daniels said, her voice cold. She was a tall woman with steel-gray hair pulled back tightly. "You violated direct orders by investigating an unknown signal, involved yourself in an alien conflict, and now you've brought these visitors to Earth?" "Yes, Admiral," Elias replied calmly. "And in doing so, we discovered that humanity is facing a threat greater than anything we've ever encountered." The room was filled with the highest-ranking military and government officials. President William Clark sat at the head of the table, his face serious as he listened. Next to him, Defense Secretary Diana Bailey frowned deeply. Captain Wright acted on his best judgment, President Clark said, and now we need to decide how to respond to this information. The Valerian ambassador Kale stood beside Elias. His silver skin reflected the room's lights. The Draxians will not stop with council worlds, he said. Once they learn more about humans, they will come for you too. They seek to control all advanced species. Diana Bailey leaned forward. With all due respect, Mr. Ambassador, why should we risk human lives fighting your war? A war you're already losing? Because if we work together, we might win, Elias said, firmly. Olivia discovered weaknesses in their communication systems. Frank has ideas about how to counter their weapons technology, and our ships use different systems than council vessels. The Draxian neutralizing technology doesn't affect us the same way. Admiral Daniels shook her head. This is too risky. We should focus on building our defenses here, not sending our fleet to fight in distant star systems. By then it will be too late, Lisa Morgan added from her seat beside Elias. The Draxians are methodical. They perfect their strategy against each species before attacking. If we wait until they come to us, they'll have already figured out how to defeat us. President Clark rubbed his chin thoughtfully. What exactly are you proposing, Captain? A joint operation, Elias answered. Not our entire fleet, but a task force. Working with council scientists, we can develop countermeasures against Draxian technology. We hit their supply lines, test their weaknesses, and show the council that resistance is possible. The debate continued for hours. Some officials supported immediate action, while others urged caution. As the meeting finally seemed to be leaning toward at least limited involvement, an aide rushed in and whispered something to Admiral Daniels. Her face paled. We just received word that our lunar base is experiencing unexplained power fluctuations and communication disruptions. Frank Ramirez, who had been quiet until now, suddenly stood up. Sir, that sounds like the first stage of a Draxian infiltration. I saw similar patterns in the council records of worlds before they were attacked. That's impossible, Diana Bailey said. The Draxians couldn't have reached our system already. They send advance teams, Kale explained. Small, specialized, units that sabotage key infrastructure before the main fleet arrives. President Clark turned to his military chiefs. Verify this immediately. If it's true, I need to get to the lunar base, Frank said urgently. If it is Draxian sabotage, I might be able to stop it before critical systems are compromised. The room erupted in activity. Orders were given, communications sent. In the midst of the chaos, Elias found himself standing next to President Clark. It seems the decision has been made for us, the president said quietly. If they're all ready, here we have no choice but to fight. Elias nodded grimly. Sir, with your permission, I'd like to lead the response to this threat. President Clark studied him for a moment. You're just a captain, Elias. This situation requires admirals, fleet, commanders. With respect, Mr. President, Elias replied, I may be just a captain, but I'm the only human who has faced the Draxians and won. After a long moment, the president nodded. Very well, Captain Wright. Consider yourself promoted to acting commander of Earth's response force. Don't make me regret this. As Elias left to prepare for the mission to the lunar base, he felt the weight of not just his crew's lives, but potentially all of humanity resting on his shoulders. The Earth fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the edge of the Galactic Council's territory. Elias stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned flagship Unity, a vessel 3 times the size of his old Orion's Edge. Around them, 20 Earth warships formed a protective formation. Status report, Elias ordered, his voice steady despite the tension he felt. All ships report ready, Commander, Lisa replied from her station. She now served as his second-in-command for the mission. No sign of Draxian vessels in the area. Had been 2 months since the incident at the lunar base. Frank had managed to stop the Draxian sabotage attempt just in time, preventing a catastrophic reactor meltdown that would have killed thousands. The evidence recovered had convinced even the most skeptical Earth officials that the threat was real. Open a channel to Council headquarters, Elias said. Olivia, now head of communications for the entire fleet, worked at her console. Her face showed concern. Sir, I'm not getting any response on any Council frequencies. Keep trying, Elias ordered, and scan the system. Something's not right. The minutes ticked by in tense silence as the Earth ships approached the massive space station that served as the Galactic Council's headquarters. It looked intact from a distance, but as they got closer, they could see sections without power, areas where hull damage had been hastily repaired. Sir, I'm picking up a transmission, Olivia suddenly announced. It's from Chairman Zixtor. Put it through, Elias said, straightening his uniform. The main screen flickered to life, showing the four-armed alien leader. But something was different about him. His proud posture was gone, replaced by a defeated slump. Commander Wright, Zixtor said, his voice flat. You should not have come. Elias stepped forward. We're here to help fight the Draxians, as agreed. A bitter sound came from Zixtor, something like a laugh. There will be no fight. The Council voted yesterday to accept Draxian terms of surrender. Shocked, silence filled the Unity's bridge. Surrender? Elias finally managed. But we're here now. With our technology and your knowledge, we can still win this war. It is too late, Zixtor replied. The documents have been signed. All Council worlds are to disarm immediately. The Draxians will install governors on every planet and... He paused. Part of the agreement was that we officially disavow any alliance with Earth. Lisa stepped beside Elias. You're abandoning us after we came to help you? It was the only way to save billions of lives, Zixtor said weakly. The Draxians threatened to destroy entire worlds if we continued resistance. And you believe they'll keep their word? Elias asked, his voice rising. Once they've consolidated power here, they'll come for Earth anyway. That is no longer the Council's concern, another alien voice said, as a new figure moved into view. The alien had pale skin stretched tight over sharp features with eyes that glowed faintly red. A Draxian. I am Overseer Vex, the Draxian said. This conversation is over. Earth vessels, you will leave Council space immediately or be destroyed. The screen went dark. Sir, I'm detecting multiple Draxian warships moving toward our position, Lisa reported. Urgently. They outnumber us 3-1. Elias gripped the edge of a console, his knuckles white. Everything had gone wrong. They had arrived too late. And now Earth stood alone against the Draxian threat. Signal the fleet to prepare for emergency jump, he ordered. We're not starting a war today, not when we're outnumbered. As the Earth ships turned to leave, a small transport vessel broke away from the Council station and headed toward them. Sir, we're being hailed by the transport, Olivia said. On screen, Elias commanded. The face of Kale, the Valerian ambassador, appeared. Behind him stood several other aliens of different species. Commander Wright, Kale said urgently. Not all of us agree with the Council's decision. We still believe. Resistance is possible, please let us come with you. Elias looked at Lisa, who nodded subtly. Prepare docking bay 3, he told her, then turned back to the screen. You're welcome to join us, Ambassador, but understand, from this moment on, you'll be considered traitors by your own government. The true traitors are those who surrendered. Without a fight, Kale replied firmly. We choose to stand with humanity. As the small transport approached, Elias felt a glimmer of hope. The Council may have surrendered, but the fight was far from over. 3 months had passed since the Council's surrender. The Unity drifted silently in the shadow of a large asteroid, its systems running on minimal power to avoid detection. The ship no longer gleamed with Earth fleet colors. Its hull was, now painted with a dull coating that absorbed sensor scans. Inside the ship's main planning room, Elias studied a holographic map showing Draxian supply routes. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes and several days' worth of stubble on his face. The uniform he wore no longer carried any rank insignia. The supply convoy will pass through this sector in 10 hours, he said, pointing to a spot on the map. 6 ships likely carrying fuel and weapons for the Draxian outpost on Vega Prime. Around the table stood his core team: Lisa, Olivia, Frank, and several of the Council aliens who had joined them, including Kale and the scientist Krell Voss, a tall, thin being with 4 eyes and skin that changed color with his mood. Currently, a determined orange. Their escort will include at least 2 warships, Lisa pointed out. The same class that gave us trouble at Proxima. Yes, but we've learned from that engagement, Elias replied. Frank's modifications to our weapon systems should be more effective this time. In the month since being declared renegades by both Earth and the Council, Elias and his followers had established a new way of fighting. Unable to challenge the Draxians directly, they had adopted what humans called guerrilla tactics: quick strikes against supply lines, raids on isolated outposts, and hit-and-run attacks that confused and frustrated the methodical Draxians. Earth had officially distanced itself from Elias's actions, but secret messages from President Clark indicated that supplies and volunteers would continue to find their way to the Unity and the 3 other ships that now made up their small rebel fleet. "Commander," Olivia called from her station at the communications array. "We're receiving a transmission from the research team on Heliospace." Elias looked up sharply. Heliospace was their hidden facility on a small moon where Krellvoss led a team researching Draxian technology. "Put it through," he ordered. Krellvoss's assistant, another scientist named Yal, appeared on screen. His skin was pulsing with excited green patterns. "We've made a breakthrough," Yal said without preamble. "The Draxian weapon, it's not what we thought. It's not technology at all." "What do you mean?" Frank asked, stepping closer to the screen. "It's biological, or rather psychic," Yal explained, his words tumbling out quickly. "The Draxians emit a field that affects brain patterns in other species. It doesn't disable weapons. It disables the will to use them." A stunned silence fell over the room. "You're saying their superweapon is fear?" Elias asked incredulously. "They're making Council species too afraid to fight?" "Essentially, yes," Yal confirmed. "And here's the key discovery. Human brains are structured differently. You're not completely immune, but you're significantly more resistant to the effect." Kale's silver skin seemed to pale further. "That explains why our ships would surrender or flee when no damage had been done. Our crews were being affected without realizing it." Elias turned to Frank. "Could we develop some kind of shield against this effect?" Frank scratched his beard thoughtfully. "If it's a psychic field, maybe we could create a counterfrequency, something that disrupts or blocks the signal." "That's exactly what we're working on," Yal said from the screen. "We've built a prototype device, but we need more data from active Draxian ships to refine it." Elias looked back at the supply route, a new determination in his eyes. "Then we're going to get you that data. But instead of just hitting the supply ships, we're going to capture one of the escort vessels." "That's extremely risky," Lisa cautioned. "We've never attempted to board a Draxian warship before." "Which is exactly why they won't expect it," Elias replied. "If what Yal says is true, this could be the key to turning the tide. If we can neutralize their fear weapon, Council species can fight alongside us as equals." For the first time in months, Elias felt real hope. They had started as a small band of rebels fighting what seemed like an impossible war, but now they had found a potential weakness, one the Draxians had kept hidden for decades. "Prepare the fleet," he ordered. "We strike in 8 hours." Elias stood tall on the Unity's bridge, watching the view screen as ships gathered around them. No longer just a small rebel fleet hiding in asteroid fields. Now over 50 vessels of various sizes and designs filled the space around them. Some were Earth ships, others belonged to races from the former Council, and a few were captured Draxian vessels, repainted and repurposed. "The Centauri vessels are in position," Lisa reported. "Earth's 3rd fleet has just arrived as well." 6 months had passed since they discovered the truth about the Draxian fear weapon. Frank and Krellvoss had succeeded in developing a shield that could block the psychic field. Once Council species realized they could fight without being crippled by artificial fear, resistance had spread rapidly across occupied worlds. "Message from Earth Command, sir," Olivia called out. Her console now managed communications for the entire Allied fleet. President Clark sends his congratulations on the liberation of the Proxima system and confirms your appointment as Supreme Commander of the Joint Liberation Forces. Elias nodded, still finding it strange to hear his new title. From Captain to Commander to Supreme Commander, titles that seemed to grow more grandiose while he remained the same man inside. The Draxians have fallen back to their forward base at Arcturus, Kale said, studying tactical displays. The Valerian had become Elias's chief advisor on council affairs. They're consolidating their forces there. As we expected, Elias replied. This will be their last major defensive position before their home system. Frank entered the bridge, his face showing both exhaustion and excitement. The final adjustments to the shield generators are complete. Every ship in the fleet now has the latest version. The Draxians won't be able to use their fear weapon against us. The mood on the bridge was cautiously optimistic. In the past 6 months, they had liberated 12 star systems from Draxian control. Planets that had surrendered without a fight were now rising up, supported by the growing Alliance fleet. What about the Council leadership? Elias asked Kale. Any word from Chairman Zixtor? Kale's expression darkened. Still hiding behind Draxian protection, but over 60% of Council worlds have now joined our alliance. The old Council is essentially powerless. A chime sounded from Olivia's station. Sir, incoming transmission from the Draxian command ship at Arcturus. It's Overseer Vex. On screen, Elias ordered, straightening his uniform. The face of the Draxian leader appeared, his red eyes glowing with intensity. Commander Wright, he said, his voice cold. This pointless rebellion has gone on long enough. I agree, Elias replied calmly. That's why we're here to accept your surrender. Vex's face twisted in what might have been a smile. Your confidence is misplaced. You may have had some success against our outposts, but you have not faced the full might of the Draxian Empire. Actually, we have, Elias said. Your psychic weapon doesn't work anymore. Your biggest advantage is gone, and Council worlds are rising up faster than you can suppress them. For just a moment, uncertainty flickered across Vex's alien features. We offer you a chance to end this peacefully, Elias continued. Withdraw from all Council worlds and return. To your own space, we won't pursue you further. The Draxian Empire does not retreat, Vex snarled. If you attack Arcturus, none of your ships will survive. That's where you're wrong, Elias replied. Your tactics are predictable. You've never adapted, never changed your approach because you've never needed to. But humans? Adaptation is what we do best. He cut the transmission and turned to his officers. They'll hold position and wait for us to come to them. It's what they've always done. And what will we do? Lisa asked. Something unpredictable, Elias answered with a slight smile. Frank, is the wormhole generator ready? Frank nodded. Tested and functional. It'll only stay open for 90 seconds, though. That's all we need, Elias said. He pressed a button on his console, opening a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, this is Supreme Commander Wright. In 1 hour, we launch our attack on the Draxian forward base. This will be the decisive battle that determines the future of our alliance. He paused, looking around at the bridge crew who had been with him since the beginning, from a simple patrol mission to the brink of victory in an interstellar war. The Draxians think they know how we'll fight, he continued. They're counting on us following conventional tactics. Instead, we'll show them how humans really wage war, with creativity, adaptability, and the one thing their fear weapon could never suppress, hope. The massive chamber fell silent as Elias entered. Unlike the old council chamber with its shifting colors and alien design, this new hall blended elements from all member species. The curved walls displayed star maps showing the territories of the new Galactic Alliance. Hundreds of representatives from different worlds turned to watch as Elias walked down the central aisle. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Arcturus. The wormhole strategy had worked perfectly, allowing the Alliance fleet to bypass the Draxian defenses and strike directly at their command center. The victory had been decisive, forcing the Draxians to withdraw to their home system. The subsequent push to the Draxian homeworld had been swift, with many Draxian colonies surrendering without a fight once they realized their fear weapon had been neutralized. Elias no longer wore a military uniform. Today, he was dressed in the formal blue and silver robes of the High Commissioner, the leader of the new Galactic Alliance that had replaced the old Council. His hair had more gray now, and new lines marked his face, but he walked with the confidence of someone who had faced the impossible and prevailed. At the center of the chamber stood a delegation of Draxians, including Overseer Vex. The once proud leader looked diminished, but still maintained his dignity. High Commissioner Wright, Vex, acknowledged with a slight bow as Elias reached them. Overseer? Elias replied evenly. Are you prepared to sign the treaty? We are, Vex said, though some in my empire still believe we should fight to the last ship. That would be a waste of lives on both sides, Elias said. The terms are fair. The Draxian Empire will retain its sovereignty and its core worlds. You will withdraw from all occupied territories and dismantle your fear-inducing technology. In return, you will be welcomed as members of the Alliance, with the same rights as all other species. Vex's red eyes studied Elias carefully. I must ask, human, when your fleet reached our homeworld, you could have destroyed us completely. Many of your allies wanted that. Why did you offer peace instead? The chamber was silent as everyone waited for Elias's answer. Because destruction is easy, Elias replied simply. Building something that lasts, that's the real challenge. Humanity has had its own dark chapters of history. We've learned that true victory isn't about defeating your enemy, but about creating a peace that benefits everyone. Vex seemed to consider this an unexpected perspective. My people have only ever known conquest or defeat. This concept of mutual benefit is foreign to us. You'll learn, Elias said with a slight smile. That's something all intelligent species share, the capacity to adapt and grow. The treaty signing proceeded without further delay. As the Draxian delegation prepared to leave, Vex approached Elias one last time. Your species was unknown to us before all this began, he said. A minor race from a small corner of the galaxy. Yet you defeated an empire that had conquered hundreds of worlds. How? Not just me, Elias corrected, gesturing to where Lisa, Frank, Olivia, and Kale stood nearby. All of us, working together. Humans, Valerians, and eventually even former enemies. That's the real strength of this alliance. After the Draxians departed, Kale approached Elias. From Captain to High Commissioner, the Valerian said with a warm tone. Quite a journey, my friend. Elias nodded, looking around at the chamber filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. Sometimes I still can't believe it. I was just doing my job, following what I thought was right. That's exactly why you were the right person, Kale said. Not because you sought power, but because you simply wanted to help. Later that evening, Elias stood alone on the observation deck of the Alliance headquarters. Below him stretched the lights of the newly built capital city. Above, the stars shined, no longer a battlefield but a promise of exploration and discovery. He thought back to that day on the Orion's edge, when he had been just a captain nearing retirement, making the simple decision to investigate a distress call, one choice that had changed the fate of the galaxy. As he gazed at the stars, Elias Wright smiled. The next chapter of history was just beginning, and for the first time in a long time, the future looked bright for all species of the galaxy.